Now we will move forward to Mr. Sanchez Amor, who is a member of the European Parliament, but also the permanent rapporteur of the European Parliament on Turkey. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jelena. Sorry for this horrible voice. Jelena, you did a very interesting remark in your speech when you said that the reaction regarding the domestic current events in Turkey, the EU as a whole didn't answer the situation. But it's what we see. We have the External Service, we have the Commission. Nobody talks about democracy in Turkey. And it's a constitutional obligation for every institution in the European Union to conduct the foreign policy under the principles of the promotion of democracy. It's not a mandate to the Droit subcommittee of the European Parliament. It's a mandate to every institution. You have to conduct your foreign policy under the principles and values approach, as is stated in the treaties. But we can talk about anything, connectivity, gas, drones, military security. Maybe nobody is aware, in the other side of the Rue Béliard, that there is a continuous attack transforming Turkey in a fully authoritarian country. Is somebody worried about that? Because what we heard from the other side of the Rue Béliard is a kind of shyness to, let's say, to depict the things as they are. If we talk about Russia, we only mention Russia. It's Russia, war of aggression. If we mention Georgia, downgrading democratic standard and putting the blame on the Georgian Dream government in Georgia. Why do we change the narrative when we talk about Turkey? What happened in Turkey is not another earthquake. It's the political decision to drive the country to a fully fledged authoritarian country. And we have at least to take note that this is the current trend. And to talk about Turkey, saying the people of Turkey deserves a full democracy, we expected to uphold the standards. Why don't we use the same language we use with Georgia? Why don't you mention a fully fledged attack from the authorities on democracy? They understand very well. If we criticize that, I'm doing so for many, many years. Because it's our duty, and they are not stupid. They understand fully our duties. And if I criticize harshly what is happening in the democratic standard in Turkey, they understand that this is my role. And I have a complete open channels to talk to everyone. The Parliament, we received yesterday members of the Parliament, with the authorities. They are not stupid. They understand our criticism. What they don't understand is the criticism in the Committee of Regions and the European Parliament and the complete disregard of any criticism on the other side of the Rue Béliard. And these are the double standards we have to deal. Why are not being credible in the world? Because you use our only coherence is to be coherent in the double standards. And then it's very difficult to really to make our friends in Turkey to understand this double approach regarding democracy. What I'm saying is calling to the other institutions not to be silent, to do and to say the same things we do and say in another scenarios. Concerning the attack on democracy, one of the aspects of the attack on democracy in Turkey is the attack on local democracy. I would like to concentrate on that. You know very well what happened some years ago. The preferred prey, it was the HDP, the pro-Kurdish party that had a strong presence in local democracy and municipalities. And they started to use a rule that was created after the coup, after the coup attempt, simply to crush local democracy in Turkey. And they say, no, we can remove mayors, and astonishingly, we can replace mayor by administrative means. I don't know, Mark, dear Mark, these guys are members of the Council of Europe. They signed the Charter of Local Autonomy, and they defend that the law authorizing the authorities not only to remove, because everybody could have a problem with justice, not only to remove that could be normal, but to replace politically a mayor is a thing that we have to understand. And they use systematically, I don't know, Jelena mentioned the name of the cases, in which they simply not remove a mayor because they have a problem in the judiciary, but not to remove, but to appoint another person, always from the ruling party. And the number of millions of people not being governed by the people they elected is enormous. But this changed overnight when the palace decided to change completely the landscape, and they started to need the HDP. They need the seats in the parliament of the HDP to conduct a political reform and constitutional reform to allow Erdogan to be candidate again. And then they started to avoid any attack on the HDP, and they started attacking the CHP. Because the CHP, under the new administration, meant directly a threat. And the best proof of this, for the last 13 years, finally the CHP won the elections, the local elections. And that makes ring all the alarms of the system. Or it's true, we are trying to lure the HDP, the pro-Kurdish party, to our peace process. And in the peace process, I'm sure they are offering to get rid of the trustee system as part of the bargain, because that allows the HDP, now them, to have a good number of municipalities. And then the other option is let's crush systematically the powerful opposition that finally won the last elections. And it is when the thing started. They started questioning the diploma, the university diploma of Mr. Imamoglu after 30 years. And that drags to this situation other 30 people having had the same diploma from this Northern Cypriot university. And there was the prosecution of the Imamoglu and many mayors of the CHP. And they will start a campaign threatening some CHP mayors to be dragged to the judiciary. And then some of them, they accepted to be and to enter in the AKP. And they have, I don't know how many, 4 or 5 mayors who decide overnight, I'm joining the AKP. For sure, after having shown some papers that could be compromising for them. And now it's the CHP as a party. And I think when the elected leader of the CHP came out with this rationale, I think we have to be able to translate this. And Özgür Özel said why the CHP is now under a fully fledged attack, because now, for the first time, we are a threat. Because with the former CHP, we are playing our role, never winning, never having the possibilities to win, and we legitimize the system because there is a theoretical opposition designed never to win elections. And now, with this administration, they really notice that we are, because the polls and because the spirit of the things, we are ready to take. If Özgür Özel, the elected chair of the CHP, would have preferred low profile, not to conduct more than 100 rallies over the country and try only to appease the palace, this attack, it never would happen, for sure. And now, what is the current situation? And theoretical leader of the CHP appointed by the judiciary, an elected leader of the CHP trying to struggle and maintaining the issue, and again, the judiciary. When I talk to my to my Turkish colleagues, to me it's astonishing, because they reacted as if they really have a proper judiciary, and they think about we have to appeal, we have to continue. There is no real judiciary in Turkey, and our Turkish friends, they don't realize that the system is as it is. And in the morning in which the ruling of the CHP was published, in the evening, during the morning, the chair of this court assured to the journalists, no, we are not deciding today. We didn't even started the discussion, And 5 hours later, after these reassurances of the chair of the court, there was published the decision. And the decision was not only about annulling completely the 23rd, the year 23 Congress. It was different things. And provisionally measured, imposing a new leader. Not expected, not mandatory in any way, and you never had in your judiciary system any judiciary decision in which 24 hours after the decision, the police stormed nothing more the premises of an historic party. And now what is the situation? The situation is, of course, there is an appeal pending, Court of Cassation appeal, meaning the keys of the solution of the current situation of the CHP is again in the hands of the judiciary, meaning in the hands of the palace. If the palace order to the Court of Cassation hold the issue for a couple of years in a way that we can go to the election with this situation in the CHP. Because in the new administration, theoretical or official administration of the CHP, they started to say, no, we can do a Congress before having the Court of Cassation ruling. And now, in the hands of the Court of Cassation, meaning in the hands of the palace, is to hold the issue as it is for a couple of years and then go to the election having this situation in the opposition. What I'm calling to you is to stay in this part of the rebellion and to attach to the principles and values. We are still a club of democracies. We don't want defective democracies inside. We have been vaccinated with some of the things that happen in the country. And then let's be consistent when we address Turkey as a candidate country. I'm fully aware about the other part of the relation. I support to deal with Turkey as a partner in many fields. I want and I defend to have the best relation with Turkey. But our silence is damaging the civil society in Turkey. They don't trust us. Me, myself, and Jelena, we can sustain before the civil society in Turkey that the European Union is with them, because the silence of the Commission and the external service is damaging deeply and for many decades, the trust of this civil society that at least there is a hope is called the European Union. Now they are completely abandoned. We are dealing with Turkey in the most practical, realpolitik, nasty approach, and the situation is, okay, let's deal with Erdogan in the same way we deal with many other autocrats, but the problem is we lost also the civil society. And it's going to take a lot of time to regain some trust for the European Union in Turkey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, Mr. Sanchez.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your insights. I think it's very refreshing that the members of the Committee of Region, that I was part many years ago, when this House started to function, and it's very, very rewarding to have you in line with the demands of the Parliament regarding Turkey. 3 issues. We have to be aware what is the propaganda of the regime. The propaganda of the regime, there are many rational, but one is our military power is opening the gates of the membership. This is universal. And additionally, this other thing, very dangerous, and I warn everyone to avoid this, to enter in this trap. Europe needs Turkey more than Turkey needs Europe. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy to say that, but okay, it's functional for the domestic thing because they are always in this hyper-nationalistic environment. Turkey is very important, Turkey is a global power, that kind of things. But the problem is when this rationale started to reach Brussels. And some months ago, there was a gathering of business community in Turkey, and there was a prominent person representing the business community saying the same thing in Brussels. Europe needs Turkey more than Turkey needs Europe. 15 days after this word, the first draft of Made in Europe appear. Turkey, panic, panic, panic. But guys, you went to Brussels saying that you need, we need you more than you need that. And we put a draft on Made in Europe, and everybody was, Mr. Erdogan launched a card, we received many things. Don't enter from any European institution in this rationale. To collaborate with Turkey in security and defense could be important, could be relevant, could be interesting, could be functional. Never say, we need Turkey. If you say that, you are simply endorsing the rationale of the Parliament. Meaning from the Commission, no, it's important to have Turkey, it could be relevant to have Turkey, it's good to have Turkey in our security and defense framework, but don't enter in this idea that we need Turkey desperately, because they are taking our words and they are translating for the public opinion and saying, you see, they need us more than we need. And this is very, very damaging because it's not real. On the diaspora, that has been mentioned by Angie and others, the fact is, voting in the Turkish elections, the Turkish enjoying civil liberties in Europe, criticizing the Chancellor, they are denying the same right to the citizens in Turkey. Meaning, it's as blunt as this, meaning you can go and you can criticize Chancellor Merkel and you can say anything that you wish, that is a traitor, whatever you say, but you are denying the same rights to your citizens in Turkey. And in which way this has been functioning in our societies? Because the presence of Turkey and the presence of the regime in every European country is massive, massive. The Directorate General of Religious Affairs, DGANET, who is charged of the mosques in our cities, and they hire priests or I don't know exactly what's the name of the priest. Imams. They selected the imams that they send to our cities. The budget of DGANET is 4 times the budget of the Foreign Affairs Ministry in Turkey. And while we were receiving imams that has been selected by the government, publicly by the government, not a separate church electing imams by the government, because this is a Directorate General of the public administration. At the same time, in Turkey, for 1 century, not one single Christian church has been built. Not one single Christian church has been built for 100 years. And then what I propose to use is a kind of reciprocity reasons. You don't allow Christian churches having a constitution that is secular and not having a religious state, as is the case of Turkey. You are not building mosques and you are not appointing imams in our cities. Reciprocity is a normal way to conduct international relations. And I don't know why because we are, of course, different societies with different values, but I think reciprocity is just. It's not imposing things, it's not being colonial, but it's to say, I'm requesting from you the same opening that I am using for your civil services in Turkey. On trustees, you know the trick. I have been announcing what is going to happening with the trustees. The trustee system is going to be offered in the scope of the peace process to appease HDP. And they say, no. It's true, this is completely against our constitution, completely against the Charter of Local Autonomy. We are bending and we are retiring the trustee system. But at the same time, there are draft laws in Turkey in which the trick is, okay, you keep the person, but I retain the competencies. And the rationale of the municipalities, they spend more money, a lot of money, in concert of pop stars, and they are spending money. The AKP wants to recentralize capacities in funding, meaning, okay, you can have your mayor, but I'm retaining and regaining and retaking things from your local autonomy to be centralized in a way that you are not able to do the same thing that you did in the same system for the last year. Thank you.